Repeat after me again. Viva Cristo Rey.
Viva Cristo Rey.
Long live Christ the King.
Long live Christ the King.
We'll come back to that. We need now to try to understand this gospel text that we've just heard. It's the beginning of St. Luke's version of what is called the eschatological discourse. Eschatological, that's a very good word. It means having to do with the end times. So it is the discourse on the end times. A couple of days after his triumphal entrance into Jerusalem, and a couple of days before his passion and death, this is a crucial moment. Jesus is teaching in the temple with the Jewish authorities trying to trap him. After some parables about the end times, the parable of the talents, the parable of the wedding feast of the rich man's son, he begins to talk directly about the end times. He starts by predicting the destruction of the temple and of Jerusalem. A prophecy that was fulfilled 35 years later because, as Jesus said, they had not recognized, the people had not recognized their visitation from God. They had not recognized Him. In Luke's Gospel, Jesus predicts the destruction of Jerusalem 3 times. Here we hear this prediction. But after he makes this prediction, and the people's question, he realized that people thought that he was saying that this was going to be the final judgment. So he zooms out quickly to look at the bigger picture of history. And this happens a couple of times in the discourse. In the context of the bigger history, human history, he talks about calamities. Particularly, he talks about wars, famines, and epidemics. No, pandemics. These things, he says, that will repeatedly happen in the many centuries to follow, all because of original sin. Until finally, the end time is to come at an unknown moment, but apparently to be accompanied by great cosmic upheavals that he calls signs. That's not happening yet. He says this clearly not to scare us, quite the opposite. So that he says it so that we will believe in him through the difficult human history that we've witnessed. We are not to follow false prophets and false teaching. There will be persecution of Christians. Today we celebrate St. Andrew Dung Lac and the Vietnamese martyrs. You may not realize it, but today we celebrate perhaps the most brutal persecution of Christians in history. It lasted for centuries, and it was terrible torture of Christians. Probably hundreds of thousands of Christians were killed in this persecution. And today many Christians are still being persecuted in many places. 2 days before his passion and death, and then his resurrection, before giving his life for us to conquer death and then rising again, he tells us he will come in glory. Until then, we're to understand what's going on. We're to be steadfast and courageous, believing, trusting, praying, loving, seeing him in those most in need, so that he will then say to us, inherit the kingdom prepared for you. Viva Cristo Rey. Long live Christ the King.